What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Newbie, and this is Young Avengers #1 Conversation Talk. We talked about Young Avengers #1 on Tuesday's show, and now we're giving you guys the opportunity, if you missed it, to get in on the conversation. So I would love to get your feedback on what you guys think this book, the potential it has, and where it will be in a few years. So again, guys, we're talking Young Avengers #1. Here's the conversation.
Young Avengers #1. First appearance of few characters here, looking like the Giant Size Xmen of our time. 9.8 sold for $1,200 April 7th. So what was that, like 2 days ago? 9.6 sold for $700.
Nice.
The way things are going, the way everybody's talking, it's more of a conversation piece, I guess. But when you throw things like the Giant Size Xmen of our time, you kind of have to start thinking, like, if you go look back at the last 5 years where Giant Size Xmen was, it was kind of in the same ballpark as this, 1,200, 700. Then all of a sudden it gets stupidly out of hand. If you believe in the Young Avengers and you believe in some of these characters having a lasting impression and being the future, I mean, wouldn't you pick this up? Because this should triple in price eventually, right?
Here's the thing, though. This book is interesting because of the multiple appearances. We already know that one is definitely confirmed, Kate Bishop, in the Hawkeye series. So we know she's coming. And we've already saw a bit of a foreshadowing with the Patriot, with Isaiah Bradley and his.
Yep.
I keep forgetting. Is that his nephew or his grandson in that?
His grandson.
Two of those characters. I mean, Kate Bishop for sure is coming. Patriot, they're strongly hinting at that he might show up also. So the other characters like Hulkling, Iron Lad. Hulkling, I'm kind of iffy. I mean, I don't think. Okay, so I someone in the chat mentioned that they think that the Volume 2 Avengers might be the actual Young Avengers. I wouldn't spec on this more so for the actual team of the Young Avengers, but just that some of these appearances are already confirmed. As a team itself, I'm not sure if this is the actual unit you're going to see in the Young Avengers, if it does come to light in the MCU.
I agree, but here's the thing that pisses me off is and Face, you know this because I messaged you when we started what we were doing, right? I had 2 copies of this, and I ended up selling them for like $70 a piece, and like they were like 9.6s. So
yeah.
It is one of those books that I'm like, but you win some.
Yeah. Well, I think we had talked about it at the time that there was potential with them doing some stuff.
Yeah.
These guys, but I mean,
you gotta be patient, man. You just gotta be patient. But like, here's the thing about it, and this is why I'm putting it in the spec, is the fact that, like, okay, I get it. $1,200 is a lot of money, okay? And I do the compare game better than anybody because I look at that price and I go, man, I could get an ASM 129 for that price. I can get an ASM 300. Here's the thing, though. That 300 I can get later once Venom is kind of out. The Punisher, yes, while iconic, the prices go like this. The Punisher is not going like this. This one is going to go like this, okay? Because of the fact that all these characters are coming, and especially you talk to any YouTuber, you talk about people who spec, you talk about people who think or tell you what's going to happen. This is one of those books that comes up. It's number 4, I think, on the top list on cover, CBSI, like things like that. It's in that 4, 5, 6 spot, things like that. So the fact it's gone up that much too since last year, only going to go up. I mean, we already have, like Hyper said, confirmed Kate Bishop. So what's that going to do? History tells us that once that Kate Bishop show happens, this is going to have another spike because Kate Bishop, this is the first appearance. She's hot. That's what people want. That's what people are going to chase, and boom. So it's going to go up. Then Patriot. I mean, I would like to think that they teased him, but they're going to use him later. Again, another spike. So this does have the potential if these characters are the future. That's the key. The other key is this the actual team that they use? Because then you're only banking on Kate Bishop or Patriot or one of these characters kind of taking that mantle and making it super popular and it being a bigger book. So,
and Azer actually brought up a good point in the chat, actually, which I completely overlooked.
Iron Lad is
Kang. And
everybody sleeps on that, man. Everybody.
Yeah. And Asgardian is Wiccan. So technically, we've already kind of saw. I mean, we obviously saw the child version in WandaVision, but who's to say that you won't get the grown up? Now, here's the thing. Tim asked about which version of Young Avengers one you should get, because we know that there's several copies. We know there's the one that you're showing. There's a director's cut, which is almost, it has like that half shaded look, like a cover look.
It's the same cover, just different
Same cover.
different colors and shades and things like that. Yeah.
That book, because I was tracking this because I have both. That book, for the longest time, you were able to get raw copies because it was almost considered like the inferior of the two. That one, you could have all day you could have got that for like $20-$30. I'm seeing 9.8s of that selling for like $600, $500 of the director's cut. The most sought after one is that Wizard World Convention one, which is only a limited number, which I think is like a pretty much like, it looks like a sketch cover. That one I'm pretty sure is a lot higher than the first, and also the one that you might not want to sleep on if you do find it in the wild is there's a Toy Biz reprint that came with, like, I believe the action figure. It basically will say not for resale on the bottom where the barcode would be. That one also is fetching for some coin as well.
The Wizard one is the one to get.
The Wizard one is the one to get, but it's also the most expensive. But I mean, honestly, if you got any of those variants of Young Avengers 1 back then, you're probably in the money right now.
Yeah, that Wizard World one though, there's also kind of like there's a bit of a novelty price tag attached to that one too, because you're not going to find another 9.5 graded comic either.
No,
so
that's true. Yeah, but since we're talking about CGC and grading, and particularly on this book, what's hilarious about this is that a friend of mine got this graded from CGC, and I think I told you guys how in the notation he sent them a first print of the original Young Avengers. They put on the notation reprint.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they basically mislabeled the slab.
Wow. He should have been able to just call him and get it reslabbed though.
I'm pretty sure he could have, but I mean the fact that
wouldn't that make it like more like valuable because of the mess up?
You would. I mean, that's what people are banking on. Right? Remember that whole Falcon and Winter Soldier when they put DC Comics?
Yeah.
People are thinking, oh, maybe they shouldn't. They should keep it because it's now a collector's item. But it's like, I mean, I would rather have the correct label on my slab.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. But we know how those error, the printing error, the color error, all that stuff is, and people go crazy for it. So you never know, right?
And no, Ultra, it wasn't the reprint. It was the actual. It was the legit.
I don't know. Yeah, that's not. I know that some of those errors and stuff like that may sometimes have a premium. That's not the one that I would want to have on it though, because I just, you just know that trying to sell that, somebody's gonna come back at you and be like, "Well, it's a fucking reprint, so I should pay less."
That's
it right there. It's a reprint.
That's exactly my point, because people people will take CGC's label as gospel, right? So even if you could have Detective Comics like 880, and if CGC put it as X-Men 1, they might think, oh shoot, this is X-Men 1.
Can I ask you before we finish here with this book already being a $1,200 book in the 9.8?
Yeah.
If you truly believe in this being the future, if you truly believe in these characters hitting, whether it be one or two of them, again, Kate Bishop, we already know is confirmed. Patriot, we technically already saw. I don't think they're going to just leave that in, under the rug kind of thing. I think he's going to have something. Iron Lad, I think a lot of people sleep on the fact that he's actually Kang the Conqueror. Wiccan, we've already seen. If you really believe in this, I mean, even at $1,200 in a 9.8, it's cheap for the fact of like where this book could be in a 9.8.
It definitely has potential. You're right. I think we've had this discussion in our buy-sell segment where I personally have a hard time paying 4 digits for a modern book.
Yeah, same.
That's just my way around. Like, when I hit that kind of price realm, I much rather go into bronze and silver.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not saying that this the value is not justified. It's just that I'd much rather find this raw and slab. Put it that way. I probably wouldn't buy a 9.8 slab if it's going for that much. That's probably my position on it.
Yeah, I got to agree with Hyper. This is a modern book, so if I'm buying it raw, I should be getting it in pretty damn good condition to begin with. So I think I'd probably be my preferred method if I was going to buy it raw and then get it slabbed. Um, and I mean it's tough because they do have the champions floating out there too, the other Marvel like youth group, and it's hard to say which direction that they're going to go. They could do both. Which one are they going to lean on more? You know, but I think there's a lot of value in the Young Avengers, and I do think that at some point we are going to see them show up. I think we're going to get both champions and the Young Avengers down the road.
I look at books like, if you can't afford your Giant Size Xmen, those books, right? Like, and you're coming into this hobby and you really believe this is the future. Well, I mean, just go look at the prices of Hulk 181, Giant Size Xmen 1, like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if I remember saying the same thing about Giant Size Xmen when I saw it for like $500 years ago. And I was like, I'm not spending $500 on that. No. Instead, I ended up paying $2,500.
But it's all relative, right? Because at that time, $500 for a comic may have been a lot compared to everything else at the time. Right now,
Right.
when you see $500 for a Giant Size Xmen, it's considered a steal because of everything else going up.
Exactly.
So it's like, hindsight's 2020. I find in those kind of situations.
Yeah. So that's all. I just think that there's room to grow on this one. So for that, but again, you look at some of the comments that are being made. Like I'm with Dan. And I think it's more because of the fact I'm biased and I love Fantastic Four. But Fantastic Four 19, I'd probably get that over this price point. But again, I don't know, man. Like the more I read into people comparing this to Giant Size X-Men or the Avengers, things like that, I mean, I wouldn't put it this way. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a $3,000 book in the near future.
9.8.
9.8.
Yeah, of course, 9.8.
We'll get a 9.0 thinking, it's going to be a $3,000 book. That's not what I'm saying.
The only thing, though, and I know this argument might not be too, like, I know people are going to bring up UF4, but this is one of those other books that was also, didn't exactly have a low print run either.
Yeah, it's true.
So, could it get to? Honestly, that's really going to depend probably on how well the character holds water in terms of, like, let's say first off, Kate Bishop is probably going to be the immediate character that's going to come.
So spike right there. So that 1,200 turns into 18.
Possibly, yeah. And then
Patriot does something. Kang is already in Ant-Man 3. People start connecting the dots. Already at 2,000, 2,200. You know what I mean? So like, it's not crazy when you think about those spikes. And I know it's like, well, wait, newbie, you just went up 1,000. But that's kind of how these things work. That's kind of how these spikes happen.
Right. But I think I'm going to say we're a bit like we have some time for that. But then I also said the same thing for UF4.
Yeah.
Honestly, this market's too hard to predict at this point.
Here's the thing, and we've talked about it because you guys have heard my opinion about mirror images, like especially in the movies and things like that. But I look at this book as not the Giant Size X-Men. I look at this book as Avengers 1. And newbie, how'd you come up with that? A Young Avengers? Yeah, that's kind of where I see this book. I kind of see it with that mirror image, just like I see the other characters as the mirror images, right? So like Riri, Sam Alexander, Camila Khan, like all those. That's kind of how I see it. So I don't know. I could see this book being a big book. That's all.
And just a side note on this: if you happen to have the entire Young Avengers run, you're pretty much in the money, because a lot of those issues in that 12-issue runs are spiking, not just number one. Yeah. I would cut this, like in terms of modern runs that you would want to have in your collection. This, Thor: God of Thunder, and probably the Matt Fraction Hawkeye series are probably the 3 series. If you had those in your PC, there's a lot of heavy hitters in those collections.
Now, I do want to bring this up because I see that Miguel is saying, how can anybody compare a 50-year book with something printed 10 to 5 years ago? Here's how. and this is just my logic, is the fact that you're not buying necessarily the book. I get it. It's a 5-10 year book. It's modern. We don't want to spend it. But at some point, the people who are priced out of, say, those really big Silver Age books are probably going to be like, all right, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to take a gamble. And I'm going to buy this book right now at $1,200. And if you look at where everything is going, right? So like, let's look at the projects that have already been announced, right? I think a lot of people forget that movies, they usually bring out like 2 or 3 movies a year, Marvel does, right? But then you don't really see a sequel or anything come up with those characters for another year or 2 after, because it's not consecutive years. So then you're looking at, okay, well, if this is going to be something big and these characters are going to be big, you're already looking at a 5 to 8 year period. So at that point, the book is already 20 years old. By the time those characters start hitting, you're probably looking at about 25 to 30 years, where that's where you're going to see your run. And I get it. Okay, newbie, you're telling me to hold this book for 20 to 30 years? There's some people that have been holding on to Hulk 181, Giant Size Xmen, you know, like all these books for a very long time and cashing out now. So that's just all I'm saying. I'm not trying to compare it and say, oh, you know, this is the same equivalent of Avengers 1, which is an old book. I'm just saying that, like, you have to look at these modern, because eventually we're going to get out of modern. At some point, we have to turn into the Corona age, or, you know, the newbie age, or whatever the case may be. Right? So.
And listen, I know you make this joke a lot when you call it a retirement book. There's a reason that term exists, because people treat some of these books as investment pieces, where people have these, because not everyone's going to bring these books to their grave. At some point, people will want to cash out, and that's some people. That's what they do. They sit on these books, and they know that after 20, 30 years, like, you know, these books will reach. Look, case in point, Action. I mean, that's a very extreme example, though.
I was gonna say that's extreme, man.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, that's, you don't have to go to that high of a number, but there are books that, you know, give it 10, 20 years, and that the money that you would have paid then for a book, you know, would have compounded. And not every book is obviously going to hold water like that. It has to be a major key. Don't expect every book that you buy that's modern. Like, I think the general rule is, like, almost 80% of modern books end up being dollar bin fodders anyways. It's those diamond in the roughs that you end up holding on to. Those are the ones that, you know, if you hold them on for, like, you know, for a good 20, 30 years, those are the ones that will probably, you'll see your ROI, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, I think the comparison, as far as, you know, modern books to, you know, 50-year-old books or whatever, is kind of irrelevant anyway. They're 2 different price points. So, you know, if you're looking to go to, you know, the price point for, you know, Giant Size Xmen, obviously that's the book that you're going to get. This is a lower price point still. So if this is the price point that you're looking at, and you feel strongly about these characters, you know, you're only buying it for 1 of 2 reasons. You're buying it because you want to, you know, add it to your collection, and you're probably not going to be giving it up anytime soon. In which case, you're not really too worried about that Giant Size X comparison or anything. You obviously feel strongly about these characters, and it's an issue that you want to have. Or you're buying it to turn around and sell it later. And the reason that it makes the thing that does make this the comparison irrelevant is that you already know the Kate Bishop series is coming. I mean, they're already filming it, and it is coming anyway. And you know that historically speaking, you've gotten a spike on a lot of key issues every time that a series has hit or a new character has shown up. So you know, as soon as that series hits, you're going to get a spike with this book. So there will be at least some money to be made if that's your purpose in buying it, to resell it. That being said, you probably should have bought it a couple months ago, though.
Yeah, you just have to look. You just have to look, and you have to, again, you have to take that risk, because if you ask some of the older and, you know, experienced collectors, right? Like, this is how I do things. Like, if I want to learn construction, I'm not going to go ask a chef. If I want to know how to, you know, what it takes to buy and drive a Mercedes, I'm not going to ask the guy that's driving a Toyota, right? So you sometimes have to go to your experienced collectors and things like that, and look at how they do things. Like, you know, Dan, for example, the first one that comes to mind, but there's plenty of other ones where they picked up books off the shelf, or books that were like, you know, or like books that nobody thought of, or they thought they were maybe too expensive, and then now they're just laughing because they have these big books, right? Like look at all the people that had like 25 copies of Hulk 181, right? Like, sometimes it happens. I'm not saying $1,200 is a lot of money, especially for a modern, but you have to look at a modern from like a 10 to 15 year span away. So,
it really is a lot of money for a modern, and yeah, I mean, as soon as you start getting into the range that this is at, you can start kind of looking towards Ultimate Fallout 4, which is probably an even bigger investment. Even if you do get this one for, yeah, you still want to try and find the most reasonable price you can now. Again, like we were just saying, you'll still make money when we see Kate Bishop at the very least.
Yep.
So
I was lucky because I think
safe.
I picked up this book raw. I think 2019. I think I paid $60 for it, and at that time I thought I was overpaying because this book was nowhere near what the value is right now. So, and the director's cut, I think it was like a $10 book at that time. So,
speak of Dan, thing is though, I've had to protect and store those now key issues for decades. Yeah, that's what you gotta do. It's patient.
Yeah, exactly. That's the bitch about it right there, is storing them.